welcome. My name is Joan Drutch, and I'll be presenting alongside Aubrey Buchanan, Mateusz, and Dante Rivetti. This week's case analysis examines how AI and data-driven technologies are reshaping customer relationships and marketing practices. Our group will focus on millennials' vulnerability to these changes, the reasons behind it, and strategies to better protect consumers. We'll also discuss the benefits of customer data for both businesses and consumers alike, and how organizations can better balance value creation and ethical responsibility. To begin, it's important to understand how customer relationship marketing has evolved. So traditionally, marketing was built on direct relationships where companies relied on interpersonal interactions to understand customer needs over time. However, with advancements in AI and machine learning, this approach has shifted towards a data-driven model. Organizations can now track behavior in real time, predict preferences, and influence decision-making through algorithm-based systems. This represents a fundamental shift as marketing is no longer just reactive, but also predictive, and in many cases, very influential. So while this enables more personalized customer experiences, it also raises concerns around how data is used and the level of control that consumers actually have. To better understand what has changed, it's helpful to look at the foundation of relational marketing. Garbarino and Johnson emphasize that strong customer relationships are built on satisfaction, trust, and commitment, with elements developing over time through consistent and transparent interactions between all parties involved. What's important here is that these relationships were traditionally grounded in human experience and direct engagement, where conversely, today's data-driven environment introduces a very different dynamic. Relationships are increasingly mediated by technology, and interactions are guided by data insights rather than relational connection. While this can enhance efficiency, it does raise questions about whether trust and commitment are being genuinely built or just strategically engineered through data. And furthermore, are the uses of this data ethical? This leads us into a key insight from this week's TED Talk entitled, "We're Building a Dystopia Just to Make People Click Ads." As mentioned within the presentation, the primary concern is not what artificial intelligence can do, but how it's used. Algorithms today are designed to optimize for engagement, meaning that they prioritize content that is most likely to capture attention and influence consumer behavior. They do this from obtaining and tracking consumer data, some of which may be deemed personal or proprietary. Importantly, the influence is not always obvious. It can be very subtle and gradual, making it difficult for consumers to recognize that their decisions are actually being shaped. So this does create a significant imbalance where organizations have very deep insights into consumer behavior, and consumers have very limited visibility into how they're actually being influenced and what type of their data is being exposed. As a result, individuals who are highly engaged in online and digital environments may be especially susceptible to these effects. So I will hand it off to Aubrey to explain how the millennial generation may be the most vulnerable.
Hi, I'm Aubrey, and I'm going to be touching on millennials and a little bit about their preferences, interests, and then we'll address the elephant in the room, which tends to be vulnerability within the generation. So when you hear millennials, you might have heard them called a Generation Y as well. They're born between 1980 and 2000s, and they're actually the first digital native generation. So they were the first generation to be born with smartphones, submerged in social media, and they're known to have a large influential group within purchasing power. So some of their preferences and interests, Generation Y really values convenience and speed. We tend to be a little more impatient nowadays due to higher just dopamine desires, dopamine rushes, constant need of new things, very strongly influenced by social media and peers, and very high technologically driven. So that ties back into being the first native generation, which is understandable, but also due to things constantly wanting change, constantly wanting newer things, millennials tend to have a very low brand loyalty, and this can also be caused by using brands to want to express identities and values and your lifestyle. So whenever you change and have a new value or a new identity, you tend to jump from brand to brand whenever you just see something new that occurs. So, millennials and vulnerability. Why are they vulnerable? There tends to be, the biggest thing is social media. We all know that, social media. Search engines as well, such as like Google tracking your behavior. And then e-commerce platforms. So that's like Amazon is a big thing right now. And why are they vulnerable? Millennials tend to have a constant digital connection. So if you're always online, there's more exposure to that targeted content. The desire for convenience and instant gratification as well, as I talked about earlier. Like you want your fast and easy purchases from Amazon, for example. And then a very high reliance on technology, once again, since they're born into that generation of being the first that's just integrated into your daily life. So the key takeaway here, convenience has ultimately normalized data sharing. If it's easier, faster, and cheaper, it tends to lead to more sharing of information. And over time, this has ultimately normalized giving up information without really even thinking about it, which can be very detrimental. So some more specific examples of vulnerability are targeted advertising. So this can be ads based on things such as your search history and social media. And if it's more highly personalized, makes you feel more seen, it's easier to disguise the underlying manipulation that's happening. Promotion and coupons. So these can be like e-coupons. So millennials are very highly responsive to things such as like flash sales or online coupons or limited time deals, which can really stand out, give you that little burst of excitement. And then reward and loyalty programs as well. So people tend to be offered like discounts in exchange for they'll give their email, or it may lead to even giving personal data or your purchase history for in order to receive that discount. So people people tend to think that they're making these decisions, they're independent choices because they're choosing to put their email in, they're choosing to sign up to get this information, but ultimately it's being it's a guided behavior. So it's without awareness. Directly ties back into the TED Talk idea of manipulation. So people think that they're ultimately making independent choices, but the underlying is that they're actually being guided through these algorithms, through these small manipulations of targeted marketing.
Now let's talk about why data protection is so important. First, we have the issue of uncontrollable data. Modern machine learning systems are constantly evolving, which makes them very difficult to fully understand or audit. As Ms. Tufecki explains, algorithms don't just process data, they actually learn from it and can shape human behavior. This creates what's known as a black box problem, where even the developers who build these systems may not be fully able to predict their outcomes. Second, we have the misuse of data. This data is often used beyond its original purpose. This can include things like targeted manipulation through political ads or behavioral nudging, unauthorized sharing or selling of personal data, and even security breaches. A good example is how some platforms optimize for engagement. They may push extreme or sensational content because it keeps users clicking, not because it's accurate or beneficial to them. Finally, there is a lack of trust and transparency. Research by Theodore Morey, Theodore Forbeth, and Alison Shoup shows that customers often don't understand how their data is collected or used, and companies don't clearly communicate their practices. This ultimately leads to reduced trust, hesitation to share data, and long-term damage to the company's brand. So what can be done to protect consumers? First, companies need to provide clear data usage policies. This means simple, easy to understand explanations of what data is collected, how it's used, and who it's shared with. So no more confusion. Second, users need real control through opt-in and opt-out systems. Instead of automatic consent, users should actively choose to share their data they give out. And they should be able to opt out at any point. This aligns with the idea that people shouldn't be passively influenced or manipulated by algorithms. Third, we need stronger regulation. In the United States, data privacy laws are currently fragmented and inconsistent. In contrast, regions like the European Union have implemented more comprehensive frameworks like the GDPR, which emphasizes user consent and gives individuals the right to access and delete their data. Organizations like the FTC are working toward improving consumer privacy protections, but there still is room to grow. Finally, let's look at what companies can do and why it really matters. One key idea is reinforcing trust through relationship marketing. Traditionally, marketing focused on building long-term relationships, trust, and consumer loyalty. Data-driven marketing shouldn't replace these values, it should just support them and make them stronger. Companies also need to integrate ethics into their data-driven strategies. This means using data to serve customers, not exploit them. Avoiding manipulative algorithm practices, something Ms. Tefeki strongly warns about, and building transparent systems that customers can actually understand. There are also clear business benefits to strong data protections. When customers trust a company, they're more likely to stay loyal, which increases retention. It also strengthens brand reputation, reduces legal and regulatory risks, and creates a more sustainable competitive advantage. So ultimately, protecting our consumer data isn't just the right thing to do, it's also smart business.
The side of data, specifically starting off with the customer perspective. First of all, you're going to have much more personalized experiences. Each experience is going to be unique. Everything's going to be tailored to what you want, what you need, but also each experience is going to be different. So that even different types of day, even different throughout the month, each different day of the week, the amount of this data will able to consider that and will make sure that it's personalized to every single person at every single time. And this actually leads to greater engagement. You feel better, the company feels better. It's kind of a win-win. Second of all, it's going to be much more relevant. Everything, like kind of mentioned previously, it's going to be much more tailored to what your needs and wants. Compared to cable television, which is very much broad in general, you're not going to get most of the time what you're interested in. This is going to make sure the products that you actually care about will be communicated with you, will be advertised to you, and just be a much better experience for you overall. And finally, convenience. You're not going to have to, because of all this data, because of how personalized it is, it's going to be much easier for you to find the things that you need rather than having to do more research going outward. It's all going to come to you. It's going to be much more relevant. You're not going to have to spend hours, doing other research at different sites. It's all going to come to you. It's going to be much easier to compare and contrast different products. And additionally to that, with the convenience, is that your data is going to follow you from platform to platform. So if you move from one platform to another, your profile effectively, your data profile is going to stay the same, and you can just move. Everything is going to stay the same, and just make sure that everything's personalized as it should be. Next, we have the positive set of data, but for the business perspective. So first of all, you're going to have easier time acquiring new potential customers, similar to how, with the customer side, since it is so personalized and with how it's so relevant, it's going to help you as well as the business. So it's like with the cable television example, you can, instead of just throwing out, okay, this network, generally this type of people, no, you can directly target, okay, your consumer bit, your prime consumer, prime customer, these types of characteristics, like this, and it's going to be much easier. You're not going to have to do as many different types of medium to get new customers, and it would just be an overall better experience. And that similar thing goes with retention. Customers stay for longer. Again, everything's more personalized. You follow them as they change, because people do, of course, do changes over time. So with this amount of data, you can follow along, you can make changes, so you can keep up with them, any new changes of tastes, of preferences, economic, what's going on with the economy, if they can't afford as much, so on and so forth. And finally, enhanced decision making. This amount of data allows you to have so many more tools at your disposal. Rather than using multiple different tools for different things, it's all in one, and that just makes things much more streamlined, much more efficient, and like this level of data can actually help you reach the personalization many consumers expect. And so as we start to conclude, the importance of balance is extremely key. Data itself is not bad. It's really how you use it determines if it is moral or not. So overall, you really do need a mix of old and new methods. Yes, new technology very much must be used. We're never going back. It is very powerful, so we definitely should use it. But also, we need to keep the effectiveness of traditional relationships. That's what really people really do like, and that's what builds rapport with everyone and just makes everyone trust. So overall, AI and machine learning have forever changed relational marketing. We're never going back. Millennials are the key demographic that are very much the easiest to influence, most likely to be influenced, with Zoomers coming up next. Again, very much on the internet, on these on the platforms that collect data, so they can definitely be influenced very much. And then overall, just protection of the data, transparency with your consumer base, and trust ultimately are the keys to long-term success.